No, this is not good news. It is never good news for a 37-year-old guy to have a back injury. All right, welcome in. It's the Breer Report for August the 12th. We are back on the road. I am in Atlanta, Georgia. I will visit with the Falcons today, was with the Titans yesterday. Those two teams will practice together this morning. One of three joint practices I'll be at this week. Be at the Falcons Titans again today, the Browns and Eagles tomorrow, and then the Texans and Panthers on Thursday. That'll bring me up to 22 teams that I've seen over the course of summer. The teams that I'll see today are teams 18 and 19. The Browns I'll be seeing for the second time tomorrow, and we have a lot to get to with training camp now going into the phase where the preseason games have begun. The cut down's still a little ways off. This is really the last week of real training camp for most teams. Next week is, for a lot of teams, the mock game week, and then we get closer to the cut down. So 3 topics to get to today. The first topic is Matthew Stafford's health. To take everybody through this, he's got a disc injury. The Rams have been very, very careful with Matthew Stafford in a lot of different ways over the last few years, and this one is no exception. He has been out of training camp for the duration to this point. The end of the week last week, Sean McVay said that Matthew Stafford was going to go out and throw before their preseason opener against the Cowboys, which Stafford did, and then he would return to practice on Monday. He did not return to practice on Monday. So, of course, there's concern over where Matthew Stafford is. I'd reiterate what I've said on this, which is, no, this is not good news. It is never good news for a 37-year-old guy to have a back injury. But if you put that aside for a second, the Rams' handling of this is not with September 10th or September 20th or October 1st in mind. It's about where he's going to be in December and January. And really, the reason for the caution is they want to make sure that he's at 100% when he gets back on the field, so there is minimal risk of re-injury, and so they're not taking miles off of his body. And the feeling is that there's only so many more bullets in the gun for Matthew Stafford at 37 years old, and so they want to save those bullets, so he'll be firing on all cylinders when we get to December and January, and they hope February, or at least have the best shot of being firing on all cylinders. The one thing that gives them a little bit of flexibility here is the presence of Jimmy Garoppolo. They like Jimmy enough where they would have been comfortable going into this year with Jimmy as their starting quarterback if the Matthew Stafford trade had materialized in March, and if after Stafford was traded, Rodgers had said no. He was actually option C for them. Option A was always having Stafford back. Option B was Rodgers. And option C, again, was having Jimmy Garoppolo as their quarterback. They do feel like he's a starting quarterback, one of the best 32 quarterbacks in the world. And what having him does is it allows them to get good practice reps for the other guys in the roster, for your Kyron Williams, for your Tyler Higbees, for your Devontae Adams and Puka Nakuas. Those guys can get all the work that they need to get in now with Jimmy Garoppolo as the quarterback while you're saving that bullets in the gun with Matthew Stafford. Again, this does not mean there is no reason for concern. I don't want anybody to get me wrong on that one. The fact that he had an epidural is significant. The fact that it's a back injury is significant. But this is a guy who's needed maintenance over the course of the last few years. He played some really rough situations in Detroit, took a lot of punishment as a result of that. And so we've seen that, periodically he's needed this sort of maintenance. It happened with his wrist. It happened with his elbow. Now it's happening with his back. I've talked to him about these sorts of things in the past. Yes, there's the fear that eventually this is all going to catch up to him. All players have an expiration date. When that expiration date comes, it's a moving target, of course, with every one of these guys. But the idea is that they want to just save the miles on Matthew Stafford's body now and get him back up to 100% before they risk him even on the practice field. So I don't sense a ton of concern inside the Rams building right now. Of course, again, 37 years old, back injury, that could change over time. Topic number 2, I think one of the things that really stuck out in the first set of preseason games, one of the things that really jumped out to everybody who was watching was the way that the New England-Washington game, preseason game on Friday night started. Washington, of course, wasn't playing 30 players. So there were 30 guys who are important pieces of the team, who will be important pieces of the team in September, that were not out there. So there's only so much you can take when a preseason game is being played in a setting like that, which of course is in part a result of the fact that the two teams had a joint practice just a couple of days earlier. However, you can always see traits, and you can see rookies' traits. And TreVeyon Henderson had a kickoff return for a touchdown to open the game. That was his first touch. It was hard for me not to watch that and think of the Ohio State-Texas game and what TreVeyon Henderson did at the end of the first half of that game and taking a screen pass to the house. And that just ability to see it in the open field, find a seam, and just run away from everybody. And so you saw that again. But I think it was more than just that if you watched TreVeyon Henderson in this game. And you saw a willingness to put his shoulder down and run into people. You saw a decisiveness in the way that he ran. Like really, like I think what you want to look for in college players or rookies at this stage of training camp is, do they look the same from a play style perspective as they did in college? And this is a guy I, of course, because I'm an Ohio State guy, watched a lot of in college, and it looks to me like it did in college. Like there's the translation seems relatively seamless. That's usually a good sign. And this running back class, by the way, I think has a chance to be pretty special. If you look at it across the board, Ashton Jeanty is going to be a focal point of the Vegas offense. And what they see is a guy who's got elite vision, elite contact balance. All the stuff you saw in college is there. They see more 3-down value than some other teams might have seen. They felt like, when they were able to go in and take a look at him, he had the potential for this, but how he's caught the ball and worked in pass protection thus far in camp has really been impressive for them. So they feel like he can be a 3-down player right away. Omarion Hampton, his instincts, his feel, his violence as a runner, and then his ability to accelerate on the second level have really stuck out in Chargers camp. They feel like he can be the sort of bell cow. Now, I'm not comparing him to Frank Gore, but the kind of bell cow that Frank Gore was for Jim Harbaugh in San Francisco. RJ Harvey is going to be a big part of the equation in Denver. Again, he's got the home run ability that they really lacked in that offense. I'm not saying he can be Alvin Kamara for Sean Payton, but he has that sort of home run hitter speed, and he also has shown an ability to catch the ball down the field a little bit better than they thought he would be able to at this stage. Caleb Johnson is going to be a big part of what they do in Pittsburgh, a really good fit as a zone runner in Arthur Smith's offense. And then, we'll see with Quinshon Judkins, who was obviously highly drafted in Cleveland. He's got the legal situation to work through. But there's a lot of reasons to be excited about the rookie class at running back, and TreVeyon Henderson obviously is a big piece of all of that. Takeaway number 3, we have another contract situation that popped up. There is another hold-in on this one in Pittsburgh with Cam Heyward looking for a capstone contract on his career. And look, I think this is just sort of the result of what happens when you give guys raises. And this is why sometimes teams are a little reluctant to go in on veteran players' contracts and give them raises, because the minute you do that, there are other guys that are going to be pulling up to the table and saying, well, wait a minute, where's mine? And so, you can go down the line. TJ Watt got an extension, obviously, at the highest level. And like Jalen Ramsey comes in, they gave Jalen Ramsey adjustment, a sweetener to his contract, and he hasn't even played it down there yet. Aaron Rodgers took less to come there, so he doesn't apply quite as much. But when you give guys raises, when you give guys sweeteners, then there's going to be somebody else who's going to look at it and say, well, I've done so much for this franchise already, like I deserve a little something too. So that's one factor, of course, with Heyward, is the fact that he can look around the locker room and see other guys in that locker room that have already gotten raises, that haven't contributed as much to the franchise as he have. Jalen Ramsey certainly hasn't. TJ Watt, of course, has. But he can look and say, I deserve it as much as anyone based on what I've given to the franchise. And then there's just the way that the market is escalating at all positions. And there are a lot of guys who signed contracts 2 and 3 and 4 years ago that are going to look at their deals and say, this is completely outdated. I need an adjustment. And so it's a little bit wonky with the timing. The fact that it happened, the week of the second preseason game is a little bit different. But I can't imagine this isn't something that can't be worked out. This is a player taking advantage of the leverage that he has, of course, because they are very much in a win now spot. They're in it for right now, and Cam Heyward is one of those right now types of players. But I can't imagine there wouldn't be some sort of resolution that they can come to, given how much the Steelers think of Cam Heyward, how important he is to that locker room, and how much this year is going to mean for Cam Heyward as a guy who's now been in the league for 15 years. And joined a team that, if you remember, was coming off a Super Bowl when they drafted him and hasn't been back to that stage yet. Appreciate you guys coming out. We're going to have more camp takeaways from more camps over the course of this week. Of course, we'll have the 5 teams that I haven't seen that I will see this week: the Falcons, the Titans, the Eagles, the Panthers, and the Texans covered. You can check out the previous 17 on YouTube now, and we'll have another Breer Report, another mailbag, all of that stuff coming for you this week. We'll see you guys then.